That's the social distancing queen in her closet, where she likes to sit. The closet door, of course, is open, and she settles in there. And then she looks from there, and I think she's going to think about coming out. You're going to come out, sweetie. You're going to settle. That is the social distancing queen. The ultimate social distance is to go and sit in one's closet when one could sit anywhere. It's me, Nutty Professor. Now let's have a look at the Mayhem Twins. Actually, before we go to the Mayhem Twins, a little bit more footage of she's come out of her closet and she wants some treats. So, some treats for social distancing queen. She's now on her bed again. So now let's have a look at the. Oops! Oh, she's going to corner. She likes her corners. You know, she is the social distancing queen. Now let's go have a look at the Mayhem Twins. We are now in the Mayhem Twins master bedroom suite. There is one sitting on the bed, and there is one. There's something behind me. What is that behind me? That's the other Mayhem Twin. That's the other Mayhem Twin. So what is here? You know, and what is there? Let's have a closer look. Now, which one is which? I think this is LC. It's got a little. The only way of telling is LC has little white hairs in his chest. And it's very slightly smaller. And then this one is Finn. Okay, let's move to the dining room. We'll do the Wriggly Cat portion of the podcast, and I will add some more werewolf updates and stuff like that. Hello, everybody. This is the Wriggly Cat portion, and this is Elsie. And you know what? Today's decided not to wriggle quite as much. I think they're actually starting to get used to podcasting. Now, there's going to be a little wriggle here. A friend of mine commented on the last one that she was very impressed by how consistent their wriggliness is. And that, it's good to be predictable sometimes. So this one, this is LC. He jumped. Okay, so there was a minor wriggle there. I think they're actually getting used to podcasting. Now, I want to just add a few things. You'll notice I'm wearing today my Porsche hat, and the reason for that is that a couple of days ago we posted another car podcast, but it wasn't one of my own cars. It was an Audi, a very fancy, almost new Audi with all kinds of gizmos that my friend owns, and he let us do the podcast on it, and it has been posted if you haven't seen it yet, if you like cars. Now, I don't have an Audi hat because they don't have any Audis, you know. So the closest I have is a Porsche hat because I do have a Porsche, an old one. There's a podcast on it from last year. It's in 1984, and Volkswagen owns Porsche, Audi, I think also Lamborghini, Bentley. You know, I don't have any of those either. So the only one out of that whole bunch that I have is a Porsche. So I'm wearing my Porsche hat just to remind you, if you haven't yet seen the Audi podcast, it's kind of funny, particularly my trying to open and close the trunk. And I'll say no more about that. You know, it's a little bit too high tech for me. You know, it's a little bit too fancy. Okay, few things today. Now, in the last podcast, it was pretty much exactly 14 months clear. The one before that, it was just a few days before 14 months. Now, it's a few days after 14 months clear. So we're going to do this as a part 3. And I'll give you a little update here on the werewolf and what's been happening. We're back in lockdown here in Ontario, so I did a lot of eating out the last week before lockdown came back, and I went to the place that the werewolf liked again, and ate a little less chicken, but I'm sitting there eating by myself, and lockdown was coming again the next day, so I'm sitting there eating by myself, ordering dishes after dishes, and there's a guy at the next table who was doing the same thing. And now I normally don't talk to people in restaurants. I prefer to eat by myself and not have anything to do with humans. And you're not allowed to take cats to restaurants, so you know. But this human is eating away, and we started somehow, I don't know, we started a conversation as to why we were sitting there by ourselves stuffing our faces in preparation of the lockdown, and kind of got into a little bit of a religious debate with him, and I try not to do that in public these days. And anyone who's been following my podcast know that I am sort of against all forms of organized religion. I do have a Bast, the cat goddess, here somewhere, but I don't worship it. It's just a symbol. It's just metaphorical, And I do have a Buddha, a sitting Buddha, and a laughing Buddha around here somewhere. Symbols. But organized religion is just one of those things that I think I got a podcast on that earlier. There's a cat, dude, like organized stuff. It's very hard to herd cats. So my werewolf is like sitting there going, do we need to do this now? I'm like, I want to stuff myself. Do we really need to get into it? So, but it was okay, it was a civilized, reasonable conversation. Of course, I'm not going to convince him. He's not going to convince me. And sometimes religious people get a bit upset when I say stuff. And but I don't. He didn't try to stab me with a chopstick or anything. So I think it worked out okay. So so the werewolf has been now. The werewolf is like a month, not even going out to eat chicken. So that's one thing. Another thing is, I have sort of an unexpected ally against the werewolf. And actually, I've had this ally for a while now, even before I went clean over 14 months ago. But I haven't really mentioned it because it's slightly absurd, And this will probably only make sense to people who have done the substance that the Nutty Professor used to be fairly fond of before. Let's just put it that way. The addictive substance, which has been named in a previous podcast, but that addictive substance, the main one, towards the end I was doing some secondary ones too, but the main one, you have to insufflate it. That's the official term, I think, used in a previous podcast. It's actually, if you want to use slang or everyday term, snorting it, and snorting it up your nose, and it's pretty hard on your nose, because it comes these little crystally things that are going up in your nose, and if you don't mash it, and the Nutty Prof is a little bit lazy, and unless somebody did it, they'd be like bigger pieces of thing, and it would go in there, it would be really harsh, and then you would, on a binge, I'd be doing fairly large amounts of it, and my nose would hurt a lot, and I know people whose noses are permanently damaged, the septum and stuff like that, and it's like, it's not a good thing. But so I did a couple of times back then joke with people about how my nose was telling me to stop, and if I went clean for a few weeks, my nose would be thanking me, and somebody said, "You talk to your nose," and I go, "Well, it's a kind of a dialogue." Yeah. Now that actually, but it's been 14 months and a week, and my nose is still. And I remember I wasn't even a daily user. It was like binges, but my nose is still sometimes it's sore, from that, from 14 and something months ago. And sometimes I wake up and my nose is like going, "Oh, thank you. So glad you stopped doing that stuff because it's very, very hard on me, So I've got this dialogue with my nose, but it's an ally. You take allies wherever you can find them. It's an ally against the werewolf. You know, it's part of my body too. The werewolf is inner, and the werewolf is metaphorical. It's not a real thing. Now, the nose is a real thing, but the dialogue part, that's metaphorical. Like, doesn't really talk to me. You know. Now, that actually reminded me. Just wanting to talk about this, reminded me of a book I read a very long time ago. I think I was a teenager, and it was by Alberto Moravia. He's an Italian writer who is a existentialist, sort of existentialist writer, and he did write a lot about existential issues and kind of sexual issues. His book is called, the one I'm thinking of, was called The Two of Us, and it's a dialogue he had with a body part, a male body part, but not his nose. Let's just say it was an appendage. And it was just a dialogue discussion with that thing, you know, so to speak. So I'm like going, you know, and I thought about it this time. I'm going, maybe I should write a book about the Nutty Professor's dialogues with his nose. You know, I'm like, I don't think it would appeal to a lot of people. But anyway, as I said, only those who may have sampled in their wild past the substance that I am, you know, mentioning might get this, you know. Now, there's another thing here. I've been thinking about how we started off with this many weeks, you know, months, a year, and then the cravings ramped up a little bit. The werewolf was like, "It's been a year. I'm hungry," you know, and now it's been 14 months and a bit. And a friend of mine, another friend, said, you know, you should aim for 2 years. But at that point, you know, it's more, you're kind of back to one day at a time and dealing with the, you know, rechanneling and, you know, all this other stuff that's been going on. So for now, you know, my next sub goal, and I was thinking about how at one time I used to teach the critical thinking course. It was kind of a logic, but from psychology, not philosophy. And in that course, we had problem solving and different strategies to be used with different kinds of problems. And for some problems, the more linear problems, you can do like sub goals and you can divide things up. So, you know, rather than my next big, you know, goal, really, not 2 years, let's say 1.5 years, so 18 months. But actually, there's a goal before that too, because in a couple of months, I have the 2-year anniversary of podcasts. By the way, this is the 42nd podcast. So by then, hopefully there'll be about 47, 48 podcasts. So about 2 a month, which is not all that bad for 2 years, you know. So my next goal really is to make it to 1 point, let's say to the 2-year anniversary. So another 2 months. So that's really 1.4 years or whatever, you know. So we're dividing it up. It's like sub goals, you know. So that's the next sub goal. So we'll get there 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, but we'll get there. The biggest pushes are my kids, but there's even pushes like my nose. Anyway, that's enough for now. See you at the next podcast. Bye for now.